If you're about to drop $80,000 on a diesel camper van because someone told you it's better for long-term travel, you need to hear this first. Most buyers choose diesel or gas based on what they think van life requires, not what their actual usage will be. And that mistake costs them thousands in depreciation, repairs, and regret within the first 2 years. I'm going to break down the real-world costs, longevity, and practicality of diesel versus gas camper vans in 2026, including what manufacturers won't tell you, what retirees wish they knew before buying, and which engine type is quietly becoming a liability in both the US and Europe. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which fuel type matches your trip style, your budget, and your risk tolerance. Let's get into it. The diesel myth. Why better MPG doesn't mean cheaper. Here's what the diesel crowd loves to say. I get 22 MPG in my Sprinter. Gas vans only get 16. Sounds great, until you run the actual numbers. Let's say you drive 10,000 miles a year, pretty average for part-time van lifers and retirees. At current US fuel prices, diesel costs about $3.80 per gallon, gas around $3.30. Diesel van at 22 mpg, 455 gallons times $3.80 equals $1,729 per year. Gas van at 16 mpg, 625 gallons times $3.30 equals $2,063 per year. You save $334 a year. Not nothing, but you're not retiring early on that difference. Now here's what nobody mentions. Diesel vans cost $8,000 to $12,000 up front. A 2025 Ram ProMaster diesel starts around $52,000. The gas version, $41,000. That's an $11,000 gap. At $334 saved per year, it takes you 33 years to break even on fuel alone. And that's before we talk about what happens when something breaks. Diesel fuel economy is real. Diesel cost savings, not for most buyers. Maintenance reality. Why diesel repairs drain wallets. Here's the thing about modern diesel engines. They're incredible until they're not. Diesel exhaust systems, diesel particulate filters, high-pressure fuel pumps, injectors, turbochargers, these are all wear items on diesels that either don't exist or are far simpler on gas engines. A DEF system failure on a Sprinter, $2,500 to $4,500. Injector replacement, $1,200 per injector, and you've got 6 of them. DPF clogged from short trips, that's $3,000 to replace. Gas vans break too, don't get me wrong, but a spark plug change is $300. An oxygen sensor is $150. The ceiling is lower, and the frequency is often lower too, especially if you're not putting on serious highway miles. I talked to a couple in Oregon who bought a 2022 Winnebago Solus diesel. Gorgeous rig. Within 18 months, they had a DPF issue from too many short coastal drives. $3,400 repair. They sold it 6 months later and switched to a Ford Transit gas. Their words, "We were spending more time worrying about regen cycles than enjoying the van." And here's the kicker. If you're doing a lot of city driving, short trips, or stop-and-go travel, which many weekend warriors and retirees do, you're actively harming a diesel engine. They need sustained highway speed to regenerate filters and stay healthy. Gas engines, they don't care. Europe versus USA, the diesel divide you need to understand. If you're in Europe, this conversation changes. Diesel fuel is cheaper than gas in most EU countries. Diesel infrastructure is everywhere, and many European camper vans like the Volkswagen Grand California or Fiat Ducato-based rigs are diesel only. You don't even get a choice. But even in Europe, the tide is turning. Low-emission zones in cities like London, Paris, and Berlin are banning or taxing older diesels. If your diesel van is pre-2016, you might not even be allowed into certain urban centers without paying a daily fee. In the US, it's the opposite problem. Diesel availability. Yes, truck stops have it, but pull into a small-town gas station in rural Montana or southern Utah, and you might find one diesel pump if you're lucky. I've seen van lifers have to drive 40 miles out of their way just to fuel up. Gas? It's everywhere, every corner, every small town, zero planning required. So if you're buying in the US and your travel style involves remote areas, national parks, or off-grid spots, gas is the easier life. In Europe, diesel still makes sense for long-distance tours, but only if your van meets Euro 6 emission standards or newer. Resale value and depreciation. Here's what most people don't think about until it's too late. Resale. Right now, the used campervan market is flooded with 2020 to 2022 diesel Sprinters and ProMasters. Why? Because people overpaid during the pandemic, assumed diesel was the pro choice, and then realized they didn't drive enough to justify it. Those vans are sitting on lots, and they're depreciating faster than gas equivalents because buyers are wising up to the repair costs. I checked Bring a Trailer and Facebook Marketplace last week. A 2021 Winnebago Revel diesel Sprinter with 25,000 miles was listed at $139,000. Original price? $175,000. That's a $36,000 loss in 3 years. Compared to a 2021 Storyteller Overland Mode gas Ford Transit with similar miles, listed at $98,000, down from $115,000. That's a $17,000 loss. Still painful, but half the depreciation hit. Why? Because the next buyer knows what they're getting into with a diesel, and most of them don't want the risk. Gas vans are boring, and boring sells. Here's the part that'll make some people mad. If you're not towing, not driving over 15,000 miles a year, and not planning to keep the van for 10+ years, you don't need diesel. Diesel makes sense for full-time travelers putting on 20,000+ miles annually, people towing heavy trailers or toys, buyers who do 90%+ highway driving, European buyers in diesel-friendly countries with strict emission compliance. Diesel does not make sense for weekend warriors, retirees doing 2 to 3 month trips per year, families taking summer road trips, or anyone who values simplicity and low maintenance cost over marginal efficiency. And here's the thing nobody wants to admit. A gas van with a well-planned charging system, good insulation, and smart battery setup will do everything a diesel van does for 90% of buyers at a fraction of the stress. You're not crossing the Sahara, you're driving to Moab. Be honest about your use case. Who should buy what? Buy diesel if you're driving 15,000 miles plus per year, mostly highway. You're towing a trailer or toy. You're in Europe and staying long-term. You can afford $3,000 to $5,000 surprise repairs without stress, and you're keeping the van 8 to 10+ years. Buy gas if you're a weekend or seasonal traveler, you want lower upfront cost and simpler maintenance, you're exploring remote areas in the US, you drive short trips or mixed city and highway, and you plan to sell in 3 to 5 years. If you're on the fence, go gas. You can always upgrade later, but you can't undo a $12,000 diesel upcharge and a $4,000 DEF repair. Look, diesel vans are amazing machines. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying they're overhyped for the average buyer. The van life industry loves to sell the dream of the open road, the ultimate rig, the diesel purr. But the reality is, most people are better served by the boring, reliable, cheaper gas option that doesn't punish you for living a normal life. If you bought diesel and love it, great. But if you're still deciding, don't let FOMO or influencer hype make the choice for you. Run your own numbers. Be brutally honest about how you'll actually use the van. Your future self will thank you. Drop a comment. Are you team diesel or gas, and why? I want to hear your real-world experience, especially if you switched from one to the other. And if this saved you from a $10,000 mistake, share it with someone who's about to pull the trigger on the wrong van.